guys, Fred and Sheila McCoy, Hatfield McCoy Museum, FredMcCoy.com. Sheila's behind the camera.
Hi guys, hope you're having a great evening.
We were sent a story a while ago, and I think it just came out January the 10th of 2024. It's only a couple of days ago. January the 10th. We read another one yesterday that's just been out for November. I think November was the date on it of 2023, just 2 months ago.
Okay.
And guys, I'll tell you, me and Sheila's been, these people's got to be laughing. I mean, it's got to be, it's like Jim Jones, how he did the people at Jonestown drinking the Kool-Aid. And, you know, people has to, when they tell these stories, they have to be laughing to themselves or at other people. When they put these stories out there and they see where people like them or good history or good, I swear they've got to be. I would be laughing my ass off. I would be laughing. I mean, it's comical. I'm laughing. I'm laughing at some of these people because I see them put this good history and I'm thinking, and this one here was by a so-called history teacher. Has a passion for history. Teaching middle school and social studies in her hometown. A certification in history. She is particularly interested in telling stories. Well, I can believe that. I can believe the story part. That's definitely because what she wrote here, besides being a bunch of garbage, is definitely for storytelling. It would make a good storyteller. But she's copied off books from the past, stories from the past, and history of America's indigenous people, war, and the Wild West. And that's what she likes writing about. And she's copied, you can tell where she's copied from other books that's already been written, and because nobody knows.
Right.
There's no new history out there, but it's the Hatfield and McCoy feud. What started the feud? One of its pages says.
Yeah.
Says there was two prominent families. Well, in a minute, there's only one prominent family because Randall McCoy grew up in poverty. But she says here, two prominent families resulting in property damage. When did the McCoys, and guys, listen, I'm Hatfield and McCoy, and those of you that don't know me, you just don't know me, because if it was the other way around, I'd be saying the same thing.
Yeah.
I would say the same thing. Where if it was a Hatfields, the McCoys done the Hatfields like that, I'd say that. Like I said, we've told the stories on Charles Manson and everything else to try to be fair. We have no holds barred. Sheila and I don't.
No.
We tell it like it is. Let it fall where.
Let the chips fall where they
Let
may.
them fall where they may. But she says there's property damage between the Hatfields and McCoys. When did the McCoys ever burn the first Hatfield cabin down, or West Virginia cabin, or when? See, this is a so-called historian, and when I read that, because Sheila and I are not certified historians. No. It's funny where we read about these people. There's one in West Virginia there's a couple in West Virginia, but this new one that's come out now that's teamed up with Tom Dodson and different people, he's doing nothing more than spreading Tom Dodson's propaganda and Altina Waller's, and that's what this person's doing.
Wow.
But resulting in property damage, there was no property damage.
Just the McCoy's property.
Yeah, McCoy's property. Randall McCoy's house was burnt down, and Asa Harmon's cabin was burnt down, and a simple dislike and business disagreements would escalate. Business disagreements? Business disagreements? There was no business disagreement between Devil Anse and Randall McCoy. Private Devil Anse, private deserter Devil Anse Hatfield and Randall McCoy. There was no business. Randall McCoy was not in the timber business. There was no lawsuits. We have proven that over and over. So this lady just spoke that into history once again, or wrote it in her article. And the Facebook page that's so good about spreading propaganda, once again, they put this right up top. Because the people that sent it to us, and it's funny, we just did a video, I don't know if it's out yet or not, where a gentleman says that website, that Hatfield McCoy Facebook page is one-sided. One-sided. And the gentleman comes back and says, no, it's not one-sided. We done stories on this, and that. Yeah, just you done a story on this one. It's derogatory toward the McCoys, toward Randall McCoy. I read one a while ago where Frank Phillips, once again, gunslinger. Frank Phillips bragged about belonging to the Jesse James gang. There's absolutely no proof of that. That's spoken into history. And
wow.
Born 1839, William Anderson, private deserter, William Anderson Hatfield, known as Devil Anse, was an ambitious West Virginian who owned a thriving timber business. Says he was born in 1839. When did he own the thriving timber business? That was way after the Civil War. That was after the Civil War. That was after he got his start from pillaging, from stealing, from bushwhacking, from all the things that after he deserted, from taking from the other people and giving to himself. That's how he got his start. Thriving timber business. He earned his nickname. There's all kinds of rumors how he earned his nickname, but the one that's they believe is that he'd take on and fight the devil himself. Well, I sure the hell hope he would, because he sure wouldn't fight in the Confederate or the Civil War. He gonna take on the devil. He ran during the Civil War. This was a coward. Any of you ever heard about chickens? You ever fight chickens and you hold your chickens up there and you're pitting your chickens and you drop them down, they start fighting each other and spurring each other, and all of a sudden one of them takes off a running. Once the rooster is hacked, it's hacked. It's hacked for the rest of its life. Once the rooster ever runs, it will never fight again if it can escape.
Wow.
If it's got a way out, it's found out in its little brain that, hey, it's easier to run than it is to fight. And that's Devil Anse Hatfield. Private Devil Anse. Says here he was close to his uncle Jim Vance. We believe that. What about these people that's on Wicked Tree and find a grave that says Jim Vance never had nothing to do with his uncle? Never fooled.
Jim Vance didn't have anything to do with Devil Anse, his nephew?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, what'd I say?
You said Jim Vance didn't have anything to do with his uncle.
Okay, with his nephew.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jim Vance didn't have nothing to do with Devil Anse. On a lot of these Jim Vance sites where they're trying to say Jim Vance was a pillar of the community, we're not talking about before the Civil War, guys. We're talking about after the Civil War, during the Civil War and after the Civil War.
Okay.
Before the Civil War, everybody was fine. There was no issues. The Civil War, but we're going to get to that in a minute on this lady's story.
Okay.
And but I'm just wondering, I'm curious what these Vances on these Jim Vance sites are thinking when this lady here says, oh, him and his uncle Jim Vance was close. Well, they're saying that he's not. They're saying that Jim Vance didn't get along with Devil Anse. He didn't fool with Devil Anse. He lived in Virginia. But yet they say he was a deputy sheriff in Pike County. He was a magistrate or something in West Virginia. He was this.
Interesting.
Everybody puts this. It's funny why can't we just tell the history? Do the research. Go with what you, forget the Jesse James stuff. Forget the captain stuff. If it's not provable, it's not provable. If we don't have it in paper and in documentation, it didn't happen. Just say it didn't happen. Devil Anse was a private. His Civil War records says he was a private.
Yep.
You can ride on these monuments all day long. He's still a private. And that's called stolen valor. Stolen valor. I'll hold off on that. We'll do another video on that.
Okay.
Because that's what it is. It's no different. On the other side of the river lived Randall McCoy. Slightly older. I don't know what slightly is, but Randall McCoy was 14 years. 14 years. That's almost 20. 14 years older than Devil Anse. So I don't know. Slightly to me would be 2 or 3 years.
Right.
14 years is a
That's
lot
quite an age
older.
difference, yeah.
Says he had 16 kids, but some sources say 13. No, Randall and Sarah had 16 kids. 16 kids, it's not hard. This person says that she's a researcher, a historian. You don't know how to go to Ancestry and look and see how many children somebody had? It's called research. It's called spending a little bit of time looking for stuff rather than copying what you've read in Altina Waller's book or somebody else's book that was incorrect when they wrote it. McCoy had grown up in poverty. Now, a while ago, she said that these two families were prosperous or something.
Prominent or something.
Prominent families.
Or prosperous, something like that.
Two prominent families. But here she says, Randall McCoy had grown up in poverty. Guess what? Everybody grew up in poverty back then.
It's hard.
Before the Civil War, Devil Anse was in poverty. Before private Devil Anse. Before the Civil War, it was no different. You lived in the mountains. You live in you made it the best way you could. You know, poverty. Talking about Randall McCoy, he and Sally farmed 300 acres of land, and they got by. 300 acres of land that they got, honestly, they didn't take from nobody. They didn't steal it. They didn't bushwhack nobody. They didn't cut the timber on it. They actually owned the 300 acres themselves. But they got by, she says. That's all everybody got done back then. They got by. Nobody was that much better off than anybody else. You lived, you farmed what you ate, and you survived. The woman made the clothing. You survived. Everybody was survivors. But he was not nearly as successful as the Hatfields. Well, West Virginia Hatfields. Because the Kentucky Hatfields didn't rob and steal. They didn't bushwhack, or at least the ones up on Blackberry end. So, wasn't as prominent as, he didn't get like that till the Civil War, guys. Private Devil Anse Hatfield, when he deserted and started bushwhacking and started stealing, and it's funny how people could just overlook that. I don't know. That's a big part.
Yeah, I don't understand that myself.
That's a big part of Devil Anse's start. That is where Devil Anse Hatfield, private Devil Anse Hatfield deserter, got his start. When he left the Civil War and ran, he come back home and started stealing from people. And he didn't steal the beef and the pigs and horses. He didn't steal them and take them to the Civil War unit somewhere and say, here's all these horses, here's all these pigs, feed these men good. He took that stuff home with him. And that's how he got his start. It is not hard to get a good start in life if you steal it from other people. Devil Anse and Randall had both served in the Civil War. Now listen what some great research this ladies did, which had concluded before the beginning of the feud. In the 1880s, both had served on the Confederate side. That's it. Nothing about Devil Anse Hatfield, private Devil Anse Hatfield. Nothing about February of 1863, and the documents are out. They're not hard to find. Nothing about February 1863 when Devil Anse got on his horse with 13 to 16 other men in that unit, most of them his family, and they rode off. They rode off into the sunset and went home. They left. They deserted. She doesn't mention anything. She's a historian, loves history. Biggest part of history is when Devil Anse deserted and Randall McCoy was taken prisoner of war and spent the next 2 years in the roughest prison camp in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And he felt hard at Devil Anse because when he left, him and all the guys, my great-great-grandfather, Uriah McCoy, was shot and taken prisoner of war. Randall McCoy was taken prisoner of war and sent to Camp Douglas, Illinois, is where he ended up spending most of his time.
Mm-hmm.
Both had served on the Confederate side. However, Randall's brother, Asa, had served on the Union side, which deeply angered many of the locals, particularly Hatfield's uncle, Jim Vance, who led a local militia called the Logan Wildcats. Well, I was just reading an article today on Wikitree or Find a Grave where the Vances that's building up Jim Vance to make him look, Jim Vance done everything but walk on water, according to them. Well, I'll tell you, I'd like to have some of these guys should be in Hollywood promoting some of these actors and actresses that get in trouble because they do a heck of a job. But they said that Jim Vance was never in the local militia. He never belonged to the Logan Wildcats. He was never on the roster. He didn't know. I just read that today. That's just been put on the Wikitree and Find a Grave. They're saying that it didn't happen, but of course Altina Waller says everybody in that area, they all turned on Asa Harmon because he was Union. They didn't like him. Really? When Kentucky was predominantly Union, Preacher Anse Hatfield, my great-great-grandfather on the Hatfield side, was in the Union. And it's believed Devil Anse was part of that group, and it is believed that Randall was too. Now they've got Randall McCoy in the Logan Wildcats. Randall McCoy was in a prisoner of war camp in Illinois when Devil Anse took up the name like he was part of the 36th Company D Infantry, Virginia. That's when Devil Anse took it up to cover up for his stealing and cover up for his embarrassment for being home as a deserter. He told everybody he'd been sent home on the home guard. He was with the 36th. He was with the Logan Wildcats. He's so full of crap. That man, I'll tell you. And I'll tell you who's more full of crap than Devil Anse is the people that write this stuff. And even more full of that is people that read it and believe it. I'm sorry, Sheila. I'm sorry.
Well, now they're
I'm sorry, but hey, when you see people and they say great history, oh my. If you guys knew how these people's laughing at you, don't sit there. Instead of sitting there reading these fake Facebook pages, do your research. Click over on something else and start researching it. Go to your Civil War records. There's history out there, people. Here's one coming up. The feud begins. A simple pig is often cited as the cause of the feud.
No.
Believe it or not, a hog is what caused the feud. They want you to believe that.
No.
Any Hatfield sympathizer, any private Devil Anse Hatfield deserter wants you to believe that the pig. They don't want you to talk about Devil Anse deserting and running. They don't want you to talk about Devil Anse and Jim Vance killing. Now remember, Sam McCoy was there. Sam McCoy wrote a book. He was there. Mm-hmm. And Martha McCoy told him about Devil Anse and a whole slew of men and Jim Vance coming looking for Asa, looking for Harmon McCoy. He was there. This is 2024 and people's writing this. You want to believe this or you want to believe somebody that was there? McCoy accused Floyd Hatfield. The matter even went to court. However, the presiding judge, Preacher Anse Hatfield, that's my great-great-grandfather.
Yeah.
And the McCoy family lost their hog. Look how she wrote that. See, sometimes they get mixed up and they say the truth. It was a Randall McCoy hog. His hog was stolen. And it says there, the McCoys lost their hog and they were bitter about it. Guys, to this day, we've never found a pig trial where there was actually a pig trial. Let me explain something to you here. It said the hard feelings started over the pig trial. Let's look right here. Right here. Ellison Hatfield. Now there's some other guys down through there, Davis and Chafin. But this is, and we've showed this before, but this is where, show this one little thing right here where they can read it.
From Asa Peter?
Yeah. Asa Peter McCoy in 1867 had already charged the Hatfields, the West Virginia Hatfield, more specifically Ellison Hatfield, was stealing 4 pigs. So this wasn't the first pig that was stolen. Why didn't that pig trial start the feud? That was 1867. Why didn't that start a feud? Because the feud wasn't started over the pigs. The pigs were contributing factors. The hard feelings were started with Devil Anse deserting and leaving Randall McCoy and Uriah and the rest of them. The pigs didn't start the feud, but some people want you to believe that because, well, they want to get it away from Devil Anse deserting. Regarding Asa McCoy and perhaps jealousy over the Hatfield affluence. Guys, do you really believe that back then, Devil Anse, 1863, 1865, 1867, 1878, do you really think Devil Anse had that much affluence, that he was that well off at that time with his timber business? That's when he was stealing people's land and taking the timber off and timbering it and then act like he, you know, that old saying, it's better ask forgiveness than it is permission sometimes. And that's the philosophy he had. He didn't want their land. Keep your land. I just wanted the timber off of it. Then he goes on that Rosanna rode over into West Virginia. He says that the McCoy posse rode over into West Virginia and arrested Johnsy, arrested Johnsy in West Virginia and brought him back to Kentucky. No, that's not true. Johnsy was actually coming to see Rosanna when they got him, and they had warrants for him. He was arrested on the warrants. They didn't make up the charges. The warrants were sent down from Pikeville. But goes on to say, now they brag on Devil Anse on what a good man and everything, but yet the Hatfields located Johnsy and they set him free. Don't you mean jailbreak? Don't you mean taking custody of a prisoner away from the law enforcement? That's a jailbreak. That's an escape. That's a crime. But they talk about it like it's nothing more than, well, Devil Anse overran him. He got him. He got him once again. Just like when he took the 3 McCoy boys from the constables. You know, they brag on Devil Anse on these things here that he does, but it's as illegal. If it was Frank Phillips or if it was the McCoys or if it was anybody else, they'd make a big deal out of it. And her father wanted nothing to do with her. Well, her father ended up, she died before her father.
Yeah.
And he buried her where he was going to be buried. He buried her next to her mother where she was going to be buried. They're all buried on the same plot together there. But history,
You get upset with your children, but that doesn't mean you don't love them or you stop loving them.
Of course.
Blood thicker than water.
Election day violence. Talbot McCoy got into a dispute with Ellison Hatfield, Devil Anse's brother. Really? Is that really what happened? Because really what happened was Tolbert and Bad Elias got in a fight, in an argument, and then into a fight. And then after that fight was over, then Ellison, who had also been consuming moonshine that day, stood up and says, try that on me. And it was on. So, but on your historical markers in West Virginia, and people like this write it into history, the dispute started when Tolbert got into a dispute with Ellison or got into a fight. No, the first fight was over. There would never been another fight. Ellison's the one that said, try that on me. Of course, everybody's full of moonshine. It's all their fault.
That's
but
right.
Ellison and Tolbert was not the first two to fight that day.
No, Ellison was the aggressor then.
Exactly. The disagreement, topic of which is unclear today, escalated and soon Tolbert's brothers, Farmer, Randolph Jr., got involved.
No, that's incorrect.
Randolph Jr., innocent, 15-year-old boy, that was innocent, got taken instead of his brother Wilm. They intercepted the boys before they reached the jail and easily captured them from the peace officers. They intercepted them. That's when the three constables had taken them, going to take them to Pikeville. Devil Anse and his wall and the rest of them that had got on the line, everybody get on line if you're with the Hatfields. And they got online, they took off, and they intercepted them. She don't say they jailbroke them. They helped them escape. They done this or that. It says they intercepted the boys before they reached the jail and easily captured them from the peace officers. That's what you call a jailbreak. Said that if Ellison dies, the boys would die. Then why does everybody come back always on this 20-man indictment? Why does everybody always come back and say they were innocent? They didn't do nothing wrong.
Right.
They were innocent. When in history, that they go ahead and write it there. Okay. Ellison struggled. Tolbert Palmer and Randolph Jr. back to the Kentucky side of the river, tied down the pawpaw trees, and executed them. The Hatfields were indicted for the murders, but managed to evade arrest. Perhaps hoping to eliminate the McCoys once and for all. And ongoing calls for their arrest go away. The Hatfields decided to put a plan into motion, led by Devil Anse Hatfield's son Cap and Uncle Jim Vance. But it was planned. It was planned by the great manipulator, the great instigator, Devil Anse. Devil Anse put it all together. He just chickened out before it was time to go. And under cover of darkness, Randall McCoy, I was reading an article earlier today, a newspaper article we found.
Yeah.
Randall McCoy, he didn't talk to the newspapers, but he did on this time. And he took those 9 people, he was with them when they took them to Louisville. And the Louisville Courier-Journal interviewed them. And he talked a little bit there. And he talked about how they were bad when the West Virginia Hatfields were in a group, when they had numbers, they were real bad. And he talked how they, when they had numbers or when they were under cover of darkness is when they would attack. When they shot the 3 McCoy boys, it done turned dark on them down there. And when they burnt the cabin, it turned dark. But everything they done was under cover of darkness.
So they wouldn't be recognized.
So they wouldn't be recognized. Says the now homeless McCoys moved to Pikeville. Kentucky's governor sent law enforcement after the Hatfields. On January the 10th, a confrontation broke out with law enforcement and led to the death of Jim Vance. January the 10th. Yeah. Well, that's some historian. Some of this stuff is so minor. Some of this stuff is so elementary to anybody that's in the history. January the 10th. Once you Google Jim Vance and look at his tombstone, even that's right on a wicker tree, and find a grave. January the 8th. 8 days later, 7 days later, they run up on Jim Vance. And, the person had that right, though. She said on January 10th, wrong date, but a confrontation with law enforcement led to the death of Jim Vance. Most of them says a confrontation with a bunch of people from Pike County, people from Kentucky, led by Frank Phillips, gunslingers, come over here and got Jim Vance. No, that part's right, law enforcement. Remember, Sam Buckner had made Frank Phillips a state police officer at that time. After the affair, 8 of the men were found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment for their roles in the event. The 9th, Ellison Cottentop Mounts, the illegitimate son of Ellison Hatfield. So she did put that.
Wow.
Most people want to leave that out. They want to call him Ellison Mounts and leave the Hatfield part out. illegitimate son of Ellison Hatfield, was sentenced to death for killing Alifair. You know, he wasn't only the illegitimate son of Ellison Hatfield, he was also, Ellison Hatfield was having the affair with his first cousin, Harriet. That's why Cotton Top was special. It was 2 first cousins. You know, same way with Cap Hatfield. I've heard them talk about Randall and Sarah. Same way with Cap Hatfield and Nancy. That was Devil Ance's sister's daughter. They were first cousins.
Yeah.
And then it goes on to talk about the hanging and about the feud. What they often overlook are the destruction of the heartbreaks of the 2 families suffered as a result of their hatred for one another. And you know, what a lot of people often overlook is the fact that there's still Hatfields and McCoys out here, and the fact that these people come up that's not related to the Hatfields or the McCoys, but they're historians on everybody's family history. They know the Hatfield-McCoy history. They know everything that went on because they've read somebody's book that's probably not even a Hatfield or a McCoy, but there are some relation that's as bad as people that don't know. As sad as that is to say, there's one author that didn't even know first he called his, it was Tom, but Tom, first of all, said to Asa McCoy over at Blackberry City, he was talking about Asa McCoy was in business with Devil Anse Hatfield, like it was our great-great-grandfather,
right.
Our great-grandfather. It wasn't Asa. That was Asa McCoy, Selkirk's dad, that was friends with Devil Anse over in West Virginia. But he was wanting to say that it was Asa McCoy, the son-in-law of Preacher Anse Hatfield,
wow.
the son of Uriah McCoy. And then he says that Aunt Betty was not the Aunt Betty that took Rosanna in. He says that was Alan's, another Aunt Betty. Yeah, didn't even know who his great-great-grandmother was on the McCoy
goodness.
side. And that's actually got some relation to it. He's actually Hatfield and McCoy. But he don't know the history no more than nothing. He always said the feud embarrassed him when he was in college. Didn't want to talk about the feud, didn't want to know about the feud because it was too embarrassing. People thought they were hillbillies. And, but yet when the movie come out, buddy, when Kevin Costner and all this and that, all of a sudden everybody became feud enthusiasts, feud experts. Guys, I know I'm a little bit... I tell you, it is. And then you read a statement like that says that some of the family members suffered. Well, family members still suffer.
Yeah. Because
you read trash. I don't care if it's the truth. If it's the truth, tell it on either family. You'll never hear us say a word. But these tall tales from Private, Deserter, Devil Anse Hatfield, these tall tales about Jim Vance, that never had a Civil War record, never could find a Civil War record until the last 3 or 4 years. And now he's got Civil War records. He's got tombstones. He's got a picture out there. And we've got people's writing us left and right and sending us these pictures. They're finding them everywhere. That picture they're showing us Jim Vance is a picture of an unidentified Alabama Confederate soldier that's in the museum in Alabama.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can find it on Pinterest. You can find it on Alabama Pioneer History.
Yeah. Yeah.
The museums, you can find it on that movie.
Finding Your Roots.
Finding Your Roots with Harry
Connick Jr.
Connick Jr. I don't know, guys. Some of you all, if you want to believe it and it's entertaining to you, that's great.
Yeah.
I know it's entertaining. People still get into the Hatfield-McCoy feud. And it is entertaining. But it can be so much more fulfillment, enjoyment, if you'll do the history on it. And you'll say, hey, people, you're incorrect. This is 2024, January the 10th of 2024. This just came out a week or two ago.
21 days ago. Today's the 31st.
And that is sad that in 2024, we're still spreading the same stories that were told back in 1988, now Tina Waller's book, that's been told in other people's books. Again, if you want to, Sheila and I was up there a while ago, and we started laughing because we know that these people's laughing. They are.
Oh.
These people that writes these Find a Graves, we was reading a thing on Jim Vance earlier on Find a Grave. And it says that he served with his 2 uncles. And I know we cover this stuff. Served with his 2 uncles. One uncle died 5 years before the Civil War started.
Mm-hmm.
And the other uncle would have been 74 years old.
Right.
Now, and you don't think people's playing you that just writes that into history and you're sitting there reading it? I'm gonna.
Interesting.
Sheila will do the closing on this video, guys. I'm used to this. I'm not as excited probably as I'm acting, or it seems like sometimes because
you're good.
But it's
definitely interesting.
Sheila will do the closing.
Hi guys. Hope you're having a great evening. Please like, subscribe, and share. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye.